There are moments in life when you realize you made a mistake the instant the door closes behind you. For me, that moment was the night I stepped into that stranger's house. A house that should have felt warm and welcoming after a long trip, but instead felt like stepping into the open mouth of something waiting to swallow me whole. This story was sent in by Daniel Cross from Marietta, Georgia. I'd been backpacking through the southeastern states for nearly a month, trying to clear my head after a rough year. I wasn't exactly prepared for how expensive and unpredictable traveling solo could get, and on this particular night, I'd pushed my luck too far. No hostels were available. Motels were either full or sketchy enough to avoid at all costs, and the temperature had dropped fast. I must have looked pretty desperate standing under the flickering streetlight when a man pulled up in an old white sedan and leaned over to roll down the window. "You look like you need a place to crash," he said. "It's freezing out here. You shouldn't be wandering around this late." He didn't look threatening. Mid-40s maybe, tall, skinny, dressed clean. Something in his voice was calm, reassuring. Against common sense and every instinct I had, I accepted. I figured maybe people in small towns were just more trusting. That was my first mistake. He introduced himself as Mark and said he had a spare room at his house not far from where he'd picked me up. He offered water, food, even said he had some blankets in the back seat if I needed them. I should have noticed the small things, the way he didn't blink often, the way he turned his head instead of his eyes when checking the mirrors, the way he kept smiling at nothing. We pulled into his driveway a few minutes later. His house sat at the end of a lonely road, surrounded by woods dense enough to swallow sound. One streetlight buzzed faintly at the corner, and the nearest neighbor was out of sight. Inside, the house was spotless. Too spotless. No pictures on the walls, no personal items on the shelves, no signs of a life being lived here. Just a sterile quiet broken only by the faint ticking of a clock I couldn't locate. "Make yourself at home," he said, gesturing toward a guest room. "I'll be around if you need anything." I thanked him, dropped my backpack, and sat on the bed. That's when the first weird thing happened. Category B incident, electronic devices behaving erratically. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. No contact, no message history, just a single line. "Don't sleep. Don't let him close the door." My stomach tightened. I immediately typed back, "Who is this?" No response. I thought maybe it was a glitch or some scam message. But then another text came through, this one from the same unknown number. "He isn't what you think he is." As if on cue, something moved in the hallway. A shadow stretched across the floor like someone was standing just out of view. Trying to stay calm, I opened my door and peeked out. Mark was standing in the hallway, not moving, not talking, just standing perfectly still, facing the wall with his head tilted slightly upward, as if listening to something behind the plaster. Then he spoke without turning. "Everything okay in there?" His voice was calm, pleasant, completely wrong. "Yeah," I said slowly, "just checking my phone." He nodded, still staring at the wall. "Let me know if you need anything." He didn't move until I stepped back into the room. As soon as I closed the door, I heard him walk away, but the footsteps were off. Too even, too measured. Like someone trying to replicate footsteps they'd only heard in recordings. I pressed my ear to the door. Silence. Another text buzzed. "He can hear you. He can hear everything." My chest tightened as I muted my phone and sat on the edge of the bed, wondering if I should sneak out. The woods outside looked pitch black. No streetlights, no cars, no cell service beyond these cryptic messages. I took a deep breath and cracked the door open again. The hallway was empty, but the living room wasn't. Mark stood in the center of it, facing the couch, his back to me. The TV was on, but it wasn't playing anything, just a frozen frame of static distorted into a vague face-like pattern. He stood there, arms limp at his sides, head tilted, unmoving. Then the screen changed on its own. It showed the hallway camera feed, a live feed, of me, standing there in the doorway. Mark spoke without turning. "You shouldn't be up this late." My pulse hammered in my ears. "Do you have cameras in here?" He finally turned his head, not his body, just his head. And for a moment, I thought the joints in his neck had creaked like dry wood. "I like to watch my guests," he said. My hand tightened around the doorknob. He stepped toward me, slow but direct. That's when my phone buzzed again. No text. Just a line of text appearing on the screen like someone was remotely typing it in real time. Run now. I slammed the door and locked it. His footsteps approached instantly, stopping just outside. Daniel, he said softly, you're making this harder than it needs to be. I grabbed my backpack, shoved it onto my shoulders, and checked the window. It slid up easily, but outside was only darkness. No porch, no railing, just a drop into blackness and the rustle of trees. But his footsteps were getting louder. Then came a different sound, metal scraping quietly against the wood of the door frame, like something testing the structural weak points. Let me in, he murmured. The scraping got louder. Let me in, he repeated in a voice that wasn't his, too deep, too stretched, too gurgled. I backed up until I hit the opposite wall. The door bulged inward as if something pressed its full weight against it. His voice shifted again, now pitch-matching mine perfectly. Let me in, Daniel. I covered my ears. If you're enjoying these true horror stories, make sure to subscribe to Ultra Spooky and hit that notification bell so you never miss when we upload new nightmares. He repeated it like a glitching speaker, my voice echoing from behind the door, the cadence slightly warped. Something cracked. The frame splintered. I didn't wait. I threw myself through the window, landing hard in the cold dirt outside. My legs burned as I sprinted toward the tree line, branches clawing at my clothes. Behind me, the front door slammed open. Mark walked out into the yard, but not like a person. His movements were stiff and wrong, arms hanging like dead weight, each step too sharp, like he was imitating how walking should look. And then he did something I will never forget. His jaw opened wider than humanly possible, unhinging with a dry, cracking pop. His head tilted back, and he let out a sound that wasn't a scream, but a recording of a scream played backward. The woods swallowed me as I ran. I didn't stop until sunrise. When I finally reached a small gas station miles away, I asked the clerk if he knew a man named Mark who lived at the end of Cedar Hollow Road. He froze. That house? He asked quietly. Ain't nobody lived there for over 20 years. House burned down in '98. It's just a foundation now. Nothing else. I insisted. I described it, the rooms, the furniture, the cameras. He shook his head. Son, there's nothing left out there but trees. I drove with him to look. He was right. Just a charred concrete slab where a home used to stand. Nothing more. But in the ashes, half buried in dirt and leaves, was something metallic reflecting the sunlight. A small camera. And beneath it, footprints, bare, heavy, leading into the woods. The security footage from the gas station's outside cameras confirmed it later. Hours after I left, something tall and thin walked out of the forest and stood at the edge of the parking lot, staring directly into the camera. Not blinking, not moving, just watching. It wasn't Mark anymore. It wasn't even human. And it knew my face. It always will. This was just one of many terrifying true stories from the Ultra Spooky archives. Stay tuned for our next tale of horror.